the bait. The bait continues to be real. I have emotions and I have already screamed. If someone finds a perfect bait, they would be able to create a perfect clickbait, and I think I have found it. Everyone wants to know one thing: what is the best? And not only do I intend to tell you which Limbus company identities are the best at clashing, I'll also tell you how I did it, so you can find any flaws in my method, or use it by yourself to analyze any other identity that would come out after this video. People joke about how Project Moon fans do not read, but if there would be a second thing that Project Moon fans don't do, I'd say it's mathematics. I guess I'm not a Project Moon fan because I'm good at math and I'll use it. I even might develop another method to measure an identity's damage output in the future. In order to measure an identity's clashing prowess, first we'll need to measure clashing prowess of a singular non-defensive skill of an identity. Said skill, among information we would need, has base power, coin power, number of coins, and the worst nightmare of every first shrimp on a boat, conditionals. Knowing this, it's easy to calculate the highest value you can get from a skill. If it uses minus coins, just take the base power and that's it. If it uses plus coins, you take coin power, multiply it by the number of coins, then add it to the base power. And if it uses multiply coins, you'd have to remind yourself how exponentials work. But even at the highest sanity, you are not guaranteed to flip heads on every coin of your skill. Accidents happen and they tend to ruin more experienced players for some reason. It's curious. To accommodate for that, we'd have to assume that instead of the number of coins a skill has, it has an exact number of coins down to the part past the decimal point that are expected to flip heads given the optimal sanity levels of the user. We can emulate that by multiplying number of coins in our formulas by the probability of heads. This is something called expected value, and I claim that this value shows how well a particular skill clash. Now we can return to identities. Every identity has 3 of its first skills, 2 of its seconds, and 1 of its thirds. Considering that skills are given in bags of 6, I again claim that by putting expected values of identity skills together with respect to the number of each particular skill in the skill set, we'll get another value that will show us how well a particular identity clashes. I will calculate this number at least twice. First time it will be calculated as if it's the first turn. Probability of heads is 0.5 or 50%, and no conditionals are active. Second time, it will be calculated as if the identity has been out for a while, probability of heads is optimal for this identity, and optimal number of conditionals is active. Conditionals include skills' own conditionals, as well as benefits provided by the identity's own passive ability. No buffs that cannot come from the identity itself shall be considered, no debuffs applied to the enemy, like offense level down or attack level down, shall be considered, and no ego passive shall be considered. That said, if something curious comes up during the measurements, I will mention it. Also, for the second optimal calculation, probability of heads is considered either 95% or 5%, unless I would run into some special case. More on that later. Lastly, all identities are assumed to fight enemies of their own level, and said enemies do not have any offense level modifications, so for every 3 offense level above the norm, the identity will have its base power increased by 1, and for every 3 offense level below, decreased by 1. Hopefully I mentioned everything. Now let's see what I have found out. Starting with Yi San, the best identity to start clashing for the long time was Blade Lineage Yi San. Even without anything to work with, this Yi San starts strong with skills that by themselves do not have any conditionals. What counts as a conditional, however, is his passive ability. With 15 poise count, Blade Lineage Yi San can get a whole 3 coin power, which goes places even with Blade Lineage Yi San's relatively small number of coins. As expected, Blade Lineage Yi-san is outdone by Solemn Lament Yi-san, but, at least for the first turn case, some of Solemn Lament Yi-san's conditionals come fulfilled on turn 1, which leads to a slightly higher number. As a special case, as I have told, I assume that skills are given in bags of 6. But identities with access to discard mechanic, like Molar Office or Death Association, break these bags and can pick and choose skills they want more over others. This will increase any expected value of a discard identity, so the numbers of Molar Office Yi-san or Death Yi-san should be considered lower estimates instead. Among Fausts, 7 Association Faust held clashing the best for quite a while, although her optimal case is definitely boosted by the self-buff she gains after a profiling kill. But even that quickly pales in comparison to what multi-crack Office Faust is capable of once you let her accumulate her charge potency, and if you don't mind sacrificing HP to the RIP Space Gods. All that being said, without any prep time, L-Corp Remnant Faust performs the best, and the curious thing is, LCB Faust on the first turn doesn't perform the worst. She performs better than Blade Lineage Faust. A 000 identity. Truly, Blade Lineage is meant to work together. Also, all Fausts like to be prepared. Another curious thing is this line here in Regret Faust's passive. Considering expected value with the outcome of a coin toss, I want to know just exactly how far would a buff of a single blunt power-up would take Regret Faust. And this is what led me to the number in brackets. Minus 26 sanity with the buff has the same expected clashing value as minus 16 sanity without the buff. Most people knew this line wouldn't account too much, but it's nice to know just how exactly too much it would account to. With Don Quixote, there are a few things to go through. First, Sank Don conditionals are speed reliant. That means they can be fulfilled on turn 1 or not be fulfilled at all, even at the best case scenario. So I had to calculate her numbers several times, which led to the first turn case going slightly up, but the optimal case falling harshly down. Sank Don is, by both metrics, worse than She Association Don. Moreover, She Association Don straight up clashes the best among any Don Quixotes on turn 1. Are you happy, Faust Fumo? She Association is scientifically proven to be the best at something! Next, for the optimal case of Middle Dawn, I had to write a range because I don't understand the wording here. Is the maximum amount of offense level you can gain from her skill conditionals is always 6, or each new line pushes the boundary further until we reach 18? So I'll leave both and hope someone will clarify. As for the best in optimal scenario, CNW Corp Dawn here is a surprise to absolutely nobody. It's hard to underestimate the value of a fully charged RIP space, and by this point everyone and their shrimp have learned how to do charge management on W Corp Dawn. As for the number of T Corp Dawn, don't get your hype up, it's only valid on the very next turn after borrowing time, and only goes down for the next like 3 or 4 turns. Next we have Ryoshu, and for a long time 7 Ryoshu held extremely well, maintaining best clashing on turn 1, and one of the best clashing optimally. I mean, you do have W Corp Ryoshu, but my mathematics hold a secret. You see, I'm not calculating an average, I'm stopping just before division by 6 to get the average. Therefore, any difference less than 6 is a difference in less than 1 clash power among all 3 skills. To think that you can play W Corp Ryoshu optimally and 7 Ryoshu would fall behind only slightly is a bit strange. Obvious elephant in the room is one identity Kim Ji-hoon couldn't advertise as the Red Mist one, but that doesn't stop her from outclashing both 7 and W Corp by a margin, and only then remembering that her skill 3 can transform. I am actually surprised to see the starting number of many of her identities to be about the same as her base identity, and I can guess it's because of Fumos or something. Yeah. Now, I know what you're about to say, and this is why I have made the decisions beforehand that I did. In order for you to decide whether or not you need a certain ego for its passive, you have to see just how things go without said ego and, appropriately, have some regrets. That said, there are two massive outliers. Meursault clashes from the start just as well as other identities we have covered that go from start, and the optimal case would allow him to go pretty hard. If the optimal case wouldn't rely on 3-blade lineage allies dying so Meursault can benefit from his own swordplay of the homeland. As for the dead rabbits Meursault, on 3 gluttony resonance and with rupture on enemies you can gain up to 3 clash power from the passive alone, and that brings dead rabbits Meursault as high as 7 association identities we have, again, covered before. Also, do not forget how Detsy is underestimated by my mathematics. People say that Honlu cannot get a bad identity, but from a pure clashing perspective he didn't get an identity as good as he had almost from the very beginning. Ting Tang Gan Honlu outclashes any other Honlu on average, optimal or otherwise, and there is no other identity so far that clashes like him at turn 1. Eurodivi Honlu isn't far behind, but to think it would take so much effort to catch up to the Ting Tang is curious. On an unrelated note, Russian language heavily ingrained with the idea of only 2 binary genders, so Eurodivi is an adjective you would apply to a man, while a woman would be Eurodivaya. See, you're receiving educational content while receiving educational content. Maybe you'd like more of that. You know, memes with Ting Tang Honlu say luck correlates with skill. Personally, I believe luck correlates with karma. If you are doing good to people, the universe will smile upon you, and everything shall come together. Clearly, I have to work harder. And now I have worked too hard. Remembering how I have to take speed into account for speed conditionals, I have raised first turn value and lowered optimal case value of R Corp Heathcliff, and now it's being outperformed by N Corp Heathcliff. Wild Hunt, to surprise of no one, clashes the best of all Heathcliffs in any circumstances, and Sunshower Heathcliff suffers from potassium deficiency. At this somewhat middle point of a video, I'd like to remind everyone that the ability to clash doesn't make or break the identity. Some identities clash well but aren't used because they don't fit in any team, while others are used in teams while their clashing straight up lacks. Going into Ishmael's, the obvious winner here is R-Corp. That has better first turn clashing, as well as absurd optimal clashing. But you do not realize just how absurd it is to get these numbers. Every skill that isn't Ishmael's on the dashboard must be Gloom Affinity in a regular encounter. After this realization, I have felt some gloom myself. After all, according to this, Ishmael ramps up to her peak and then stops just a little in front of Meursault. Other sinners have at least 2 identities with expected value above 100, even Meursault has 2, but not Ishi. And again, to no surprise of Esgu, sloshing Ishmael clashes so bad she's worse than a default identity. But both Edgar Family Butler and LCCB also clash poorly. I don't think it was that bad for other sinners. Look, even Rodion has 2. Granted, Lu requires 3 resonance and burn, and T-Corp requires borrowed time, time moratorium, and tremor, but they are there. And the first turn advantage goes to Kurokuma Rodion. Now that I look at it, I feel like my math promotes gambler's fallacy and favors identities with single coins and huge coin power over identities with lots of coins and little coin power. Sinclair is not bringing anything that haven't been thought about. Sinclair clashes best with the setup. Philip Sinclair in ego state puts Senk to crying shame with his newfound skill 3, and at the start of an encounter, Enclair holds ground the firmest. Also, holy 3 dubious liquids, I didn't realize just how bad Ryoshu Sinclair is with clashing. That's worse than LCB Meursault, no? Molar Bootworks is not that much better either. My calculations can probably spark a conversation about power creep and how slowly but surely growing numbers even on clashing are the proof of that, but it's beyond the scope of this video and is a prerogative of soloing shrimps, and I'm not one of them. Let's move on to Outis, and there are a few quick remarks to add here. First, obvious ability of the 7 Association to clash. Second, Molar Office and their discards, things can only go up from there. Lastly, Magic Bullet. Solid clashing at the start, blast clashing by far at the end, and the best thing is, I'm not accounting for the boosts of skill 3 that come from bullets, so again, the number can go higher, and it's already at the level of current identities, to the point where even W-Corp Outis is falling behind. The last, and unfortunately close to least, Gregor. Again, I see a lack of clashing, with only Linton Gregor breaking the 100 barrier, and sharing first-turn value with G-Corp Gregor, who, until Twin Hooks, clashed the best. I would have been scared by the Chef Gregor if, for the sake of this little research, I didn't see the absolute state of Meursault and some Sinclairs. That's it. Again, you can take my mathematics and make them better, and then run your own calculus, and run more calculus for new identities that will come after this video, and maybe say how I have miscalculated somewhere and now have to repent and consume 3 dubious liquids, and then eat a fried shrimp, and buy a Fumo, and feed the Fumo fried shrimp. Not only do I have a Fumo, I have 3!
3
And 3 what? Fucking
3
bananas?
3 what? Fucking bananas? 3 fucking melons?
What's that? I forgot to tell people to like and subscribe. Listen here, however few my viewers are, they did find me, so they are smart enough to decide whether they want to subscribe or not. What else? Oh, I didn't actually name the best clasher in the video about the best clasher. Well, unless Magic Bullet Outis crushes numbers, it's Philip Sinclair in volatile ego state. If the state is too volatile, there is Wild Hunt Heathcliff, with horse or without, it doesn't matter, he clashes just as well in both states. Cannot wait for this video to be outdated by 2025.